In September 2020, a horrific event sent shockwaves across the affluent community of Westlake Village in Los Angeles County. The serene evening turned into a tragedy when two young brothers, Mark and Jacob Iskander, were fatally struck by a speeding vehicle. Rebecca Grossman, a prominent socialite and philanthropist, stood accused, claiming ignorance of the devastating events. While she referred to the incident as a tragic accident, emerging details pointed to a darker possibility of criminally reckless behavior, or even double murder. As layers of this complex case continued to unfold, it quickly became a headline-grabbing story with intense societal and legal ramifications. For legal professionals, this case represents much more than a traffic incident. It functions as a lens to study the weight of responsibility, forensic intricacies, and questions of privilege under legal scrutiny. Monday, September 29th, 2020. The Iskander family set out for what seemed like a typical evening stroll. Nancy Iskander accompanied her sons, Mark, Jacob, and 5-year-old Zachary, while her husband Kareem walked ahead, pushing their toddler daughter in a stroller. As dusk descended, they decided to cross Triunfo Canyon Road toward a nearby lake. Nancy noticed two rapidly approaching SUVs, one white and one black, and gestured frantically for the speeding vehicles to stop. In an act of desperation, she managed to push Zachary to safety, but Mark and Jacob were too far across. In seconds, both boys were struck. Mark was reportedly thrown 250 feet through the air, only to die upon impact. Jacob was hit across the curb, succumbing to his injuries at the hospital hours later. What began as an evening walk ended in irreparable tragedy. Roughly a quarter-mile away from the scene, 57-year-old Rebecca Grossman sat stunned in her white Mercedes SUV. The airbag deployment appeared to startle her, while her car's automated safety system cut fuel, rendering the vehicle inoperable. As the system auto-dialed emergency services, Grossman's phone call portrayed confusion. "Did someone hit me? Did I hit something?" she asked operators, repeatedly claiming to be unaware of any collision. Law enforcement arrived shortly after and described a perplexed Rebecca Grossman, who implored them to reveal information. In a peculiar twist, she offered her husband, a prominent plastic surgeon with expertise in burn care, to assist victims. Her apparent lack of comprehension of the gravity of the situation raised questions. Was she truly oblivious? Or was it intentional deflection? At the site, deputies implemented comprehensive sobriety protocols. A breathalyzer administered 9 times showed fluctuating results near the legal limit of 0.08, while blood tests ranged from 0.073 to 0.08 across 2 labs, leaving no conclusive proof of DUI. Officers still deemed alcohol a contributing factor. Grossman's inconsistent field performance in sobriety tests and unclear recounts of the events complicated matters. Yet the inescapable evidence, the significant damage to her vehicle and witness testimonies alleging reckless speeding, positioned Rebecca as central to this tragedy. Her actions prior to stopping the vehicle would later be scrutinized in excruciating detail. Law enforcement's account pointed to more than negligent speed. Witnesses reported that both SUVs, the white Mercedes belonging to Grossman and a black Mercedes driven by her acquaintance, former Los Angeles Dodgers pitcher Scott Erickson, had been racing at the time of the collision. Investigators and witnesses suggested the speeds exceeded the 45 mph limit, with their weaving maneuvers likened to reckless thrill-seeking through suburban streets. Grossman faced 2 vehicular manslaughter counts. The county sheriff's department emphasized compelling evidence, multiple sources alleging vehicular racing, erratic behavior, and general carelessness. Was this reckless abandon on public roads, or premeditated criminality with intent to harm? Soon after the tragedy, the Iskander family became the focal point of both public sympathy and calls for accountability. Mark and Jacob were lovingly remembered as vibrant young boys full of promise. 11-year-old Mark hoped to combine a career in neurosurgery with comedic pursuits. 8-year-old Jacob's protective demeanor was especially endearing, particularly toward his younger siblings. Their loss devastated the family, leaving parents Nancy and Kareem grappling to comprehend the senseless violence. Before the tragedy, Rebecca Grossman lived a life seemingly defined by compassion. As a co-founder of the Grossman Burn Foundation, she earned widespread recognition for providing medical care to burn victims globally. Her story as a nurturing figure extended to adoption-like care for an Afghan child whose treatment she facilitated for 6 years. However, Grossman's public persona began to unravel upon discovery of contradictions in her story. Once painted as an altruistic philanthropist residing in a $7.6 million mansion in Hidden Hills, her private struggles, separation from her husband, her alleged affair with Erickson, and reckless personal behavior, recast her image dramatically. The events leading to Mark and Jacob's deaths hinge on contested accounts. Surveillance footage and a witness cyclist's observations point toward Grossman racing Erickson moments before the crash. Conflicting testimonies suggest erratic driving patterns, including Rebecca's alleged vehicular overtakes into bike lanes. Investigators pieced these elements into a narrative of deliberate, competitive recklessness. However, Rebecca's defense counter-argued that up to 7 vehicles traveled through the intersection during the chaos. Could another vehicle have struck the boys while Grossman's car contributed indirectly? Rebecca's recreations sought to disperse liability across unidentified cars driving moments earlier, or perhaps shift primary onus to Erickson himself. These disputed dynamics raise critical legal and evidentiary questions. What counts as direct culpability versus contributory negligence? This case became a hallmark example of evidentiary reliance and interpretive complexity, often defining criminal trials involving prominent defendants. Observers from the legal system note multiple payloads being carried by the prosecution. The challenge resides not merely in reconstructing disputes surrounding speed or intent, but bridging the gaps between criminal reckless driving and provable malice deliberation under California law. Key forensic questions about tire skids, vehicular trajectory, and variance from eyewitness alignments play outsized roles in matching Grossman's timeline against reality. Meanwhile, reports of untested vehicles potentially implicated introduce defense skeptics toward prosecutorial oversimplification. The Grossman trial compelled legal observers to weigh factors complicating justice in high-profile and privilege-linked proceedings. Did public agitation demand scapegoating, or did Grossman's societal stature lessen her assumed accountability via systemic bias? Legal purists grappled ethically dealing with paparazzi sensationalism, coexisting by intricate courtroom deliberation balances, demanding unbiased rational cognition per jury voting thresholds. For legal professionals, issues illustrate dilemmas alienating societal spectrums between depicted media villainy-heavy portrayals, assuming guilt, instantaneously akin parking spaces conclusion prejudges underway, outperform judicious patience mid-argument consideration, convincing thoroughly why proving doubt slash. Triunfo Canyon Road serves crossroads metaphorically, echoes likewise open-ended tributes. Future concluding inquiries, attention-debated vehicular deaths, furrows regarding affluent community underclass disparate adjudicational experiences, equitable reforms, prevention possibility, mitigating additional losses. The Iskander family's life changed in an instant during a horrific tragedy that claimed the lives of two innocent boys, Mark and Jacob Iskander. This case, which unfolded in California, centers on Rebecca Grossman, a woman whose wealth, status, and denial of responsibility placed her at the core of this legal and emotional saga. Today, we'll examine every layer of the case, unveiling evidence, dissecting defense strategies, and highlighting the devastating impact left in its wake. As the state of California built its case, the charges against Grossman escalated from vehicular manslaughter to second-degree murder, with the potential sentence ranging from 34 years to life in prison. The boy's mother, Nancy, poignantly expressed her grief. "The killing of my sons was an indirect consequence of reckless actions, no different from randomly shooting a gun, reflecting a gut-wrenching loss no family should endure." Despite the gravity of the situation, Grossman's legal team worked tirelessly to dismiss charges and exclude evidence, delaying justice for years. Outside the courtroom, Rebecca launched a PR campaign, publishing articles to frame herself as a victim of a tragic accident, creating turmoil within the grieving Iskander family. Rebecca's reluctance to take accountability became an emotionally charged battle for the Iskanders. From launching a website, The Truth Matters, to accusing authorities of tampering with evidence, Grossman distorted the narrative. Her actions outraged Nancy Iskander, who candidly criticized Rebecca's evasive tactics. "Two boys are at the cemetery with their names on tombstones while she calls it fake news." Even on the eve of her trial, jury tampering allegations arose, further muddying the waters. Grossman's defense also portrayed Scott Erickson, a driver at the scene, as the true culprit, attempting to shift blame amidst mounting outrage. 4 years after the tragedy, the trial finally began in January 2024. Prosecutors presented chilling vehicle data showing Rebecca accelerating to 81 miles per hour on a residential street seconds before hitting the boys. When cross-examined, an expert solidified that following speed limits would have given Grossman ample time to avoid the tragedy. To elevate the charges to murder, the prosecution introduced a pivotal 2013 traffic incident where Rebecca was pulled over for driving at 92 miles per hour. She was warned then that her speeding could end lives. Tragically, the lesson remained unheeded. Meanwhile, the defense doubled down on blaming infrastructure, emphasizing poor signage and visibility on the road. They also brought forward Rebecca's 19-year-old daughter Alexis, whose testimony accused Scott Erickson of fleeing the scene and threatening her family. After 2 days of deliberation, the jury returned a guilty verdict on all counts. The packed courtroom was a mix of relief and heartache. The Iskander family, overwhelmed with emotion, felt some semblance of justice after years of delays. Yet for the Grossmans, chaos erupted as Alexis screamed, "How could you do this?" toward the grieving family. The sentencing left many divided. Although the prosecution pursued a harsher sentence, Grossman received 15 years for the murders and 4 years for the hit and run, to be served concurrently. For Nancy, this judgment was inadequate for what she saw as two distinct murders, calling it a 2-for-1 deal. Even after her conviction, Rebecca continued to resist responsibility. Nancy shared a deeply unsettling letter from Rebecca, where she focused on her own suffering rather than expressing remorse for her actions. The Iskanders also initiated a wrongful death lawsuit against Rebecca in 2021, with the trial set for December 2025, prolonging their pursuit of accountability. During a jailhouse call post-verdict, Rebecca expressed frustration towards Scott Erickson, telling her ex-husband to pressure him into confessing, further reigniting mistrust surrounding her responses. The voices of the Iskander family carried pure emotional weight. Nancy's heartbreak and courage stood as a testament to a mother's love for her lost children. "I miss them. I miss them so much. We love you. We must now learn to live without you," she tearfully shared, as the case has become equal parts a lesson in legal accountability and a reminder of unimaginable human loss. For true crime enthusiasts, this case highlights not only the intricacies of legal battles, but also the enduring impact they have on victims and families. Justice, while served in the court's decision, remains emotionally elusive for the Iskanders, while Rebecca Grossman's actions continue to cast shadows of doubt. If this analysis resonates, subscribe to our channel for more in-depth explorations into true crime cases and unfinished justice. Let's keep these stories alive, to honor the victims and remind ourselves of the importance of accountability and truth.